All right, so let's just get back into it. This is part 2 of this has many through example. Where we left off is we have users and we're displaying a list of users, and our users have many quotes. So for instance, we can go into Bob Ross, get Bob Ross's quotes so we can see a list of the quotes for Bob Ross, and then we can go in and show an individual quote. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and be able to go into a user and then from here create a quote. So let's go ahead and get that set up. So actually, let me close all of this. All right. So let's go ahead. This is kind of, don't need that. Let's go ahead and go into our YouTube, or sorry, our whatever you called this project. I have mine right here. We can go ahead and start our project up. Rails S. You can go ahead and split your pane. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my quotes.js component. This is where we're looping over. And right up here, this is where I want to go ahead and add a link for our new page. So I can say new quote. And then this path is going to be users slash. Then, so if we go back, and looks like I closed out of Chrome. 1 second. Let me pull up Chrome here so we can look at our routes. If we look at our routes, go to localhost 3000 info routes. We want to get a form for a new quote. So that's going to be a get to our users and then the user ID quotes new. And that's going to take us to our quotes controller to the new method. So I can go ahead and copy that path. We're going to need to interpolate this because we're going to actually have to grab the ID. So this user ID, we're going to grab just from our user that we have right here. Like I said, that's going to go to our quotes controller, to our new method. And then here, we're going to want to render the component. And let's just call this new quote. So we're going to need to go ahead and create that. So I can go ahead and just create this in my terminal. So touch, app, JavaScript components. I'm going to create this new quote.js. And then let's just kind of stub out a simple React component really quick. So const new quote. So we'll eventually take props, but we're just kind of going to fill this out. Return. Let's just do a div. An h1. Quote form. And just really quickly do a form, just kind of a blank form. I forget the fields we have on a form, so if you ever forget, you can go check out your schema. So our quote has a text and likes. Let's go ahead and do that. So text. And then we can go ahead and say inputs. Then we're going to have likes. We'll go ahead and do our button. This is going to be a submit. We'll go ahead and click add. Now something I want to do here is I want to put the name. It's going to be the name of our model, which is quote, and then the name of the attribute. So this one is text. Could do the same thing for this inputs. Maybe I don't need likes. I think I can like just start likes off as 0. But if we want to just show how we could do this, I could do quotes here, but I might not need to put, that's in my button, sorry. Put that in this, input equals quotes, and then I could also do a type equals number. So we have a basic form. Let's go ahead and export this. Export default, new quote. So let's go ahead and test this. We're still quite not done with this form, but kind of like to test this sooner than later. So I can go back to localhost 3000. It was localhost 3000/users. Something we might want to do is add a root route so we don't have to type users. So we can go to our routes, go ahead and do our root, and set that equal to, that should just go to our users controller to the index method. So now I should be able to go to localhost 3000. That takes us to our users. I can click on a user, and now I have the new quote. There we go. I got a number field. Click add. I don't have this form set up, so that's the next thing we need to do. But we're getting it close. So if I go back to my new quote, what I need here is the action needs to, I want this action to hit my create method in my quotes controller. So for that, once again, we can look at our routes if you ever forget this. So the create method, that's going to be the post request to users user ID quotes. But we don't have that user ID, so we're going to need to pass that down via props. And I want to make this a post by putting this method equals post here. So yeah, the one thing we're missing is, I'm going to want to get a user off of props. So I need to pass down a user. So right here I can say user.id. So we're getting close, but I don't actually do this in my controller yet. So I could do this. I could copy and paste this at user and then go ahead, hit props, and then say user equals at user. Now I'm copying and pasting this user a whole bunch of times. And with all of these quotes actions, I'm actually going to need a user for all of them. See how they all have user ID? I'm going to want to set the user for all of my actions in my quote controllers. So what I can do is I can come down here, create a private method, and I'm going to call this set user, def set user. And this is just going to go ahead and do this method for me. So I'm not going to need to do it here, there, or here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a callback. It's a before action. I'm going to call set. I'm going to call the set user method. So before any of these actions, any of these methods, it's going to call this method and it's going to set the user. So let's go ahead and check. Go back. Oop, my URL's kind of messed up. Let's go to user 7. Oh, I don't have that route defined, so it's user 7 quotes. Click on show quote. Oh wait, actually I need to go back and do a new quote. Let's do hello, and one like. Add this. So this is good because now we're on this error that our action create cannot be found. So that's actually kind of what I'm expecting because I haven't defined that. And if I do params, I can see I have my params quote, and then there is text, I meant to say hello, sorry, and then likes. So, this is where I'm going to like sanitize my parameters. Params.require, I can require a quote. That gives me back that. It's saying yes, those are there. And then I say, hey, only allow the text, because these are the fields in my database. Only allow text. See, if I only allow text, spell permit right, that's going to filter out likes. But I actually want likes, so I'm going to say, hey, and also allow likes. Cool. So there's that. This is a nice little tool to test. So I can now come here. I need to define my create method. End. And then let's also define this like sanitizer method. So let's call this quote params. And this is what I just was testing out in my terminal. So this is going to make sure that quote's there, and it's going to allow text and likes within that. So what I can do now is I can grab my user that I've already defined before this action, user.quotes.new. So I can come in and create a quote. Let's just make this an instance variable. At quote equals user.quotes.new. Pass it my quote params. Then I can check to see if I can save it. If at quote dot save. So here we try to save it to the database. I'm not going to handle invalid input, but this would be like handling invalid input. For some reason it wasn't saved to our database. We don't have any validation, so probably shouldn't ever hit that. So if I do save, let's go ahead and redirect back to our user show page, which we have defined as, we want to go to our user, or did we define it? Yeah, we could go to our user show, or we could probably go to our user quotes. I forgot which one we have it as, so let's kind of check this out. Yeah, it's user 7 quotes. So this is the page we want to go back to. So it's actually this one. It's the user, and then we give it the user ID quotes. So I'm going to use this helper method. This is going to take us to our quotes index. I'm going to redirect to this path, and I'm going to use this Rails helper, user quotes path. And I'm going to pass, it needs a user ID. So I'll just pass at user.id. So let's try this. This should now, I think it should be working. So we're on Bob Ross. Let's go to new quote. Let's see. Tree friend. Bob Ross loves making tree friends. And then give that 10 likes. Let's add that. Oh, so now this is the first time we tried to create something. Since we're using server-side rendering React, this token's not being, this authenticity token's not being handled. For now, we're just going to skip over this and kind of ignore this warning. And to do that, I'm going to go to my application controller, and I'm going to say protect from forgery. I forget, I'm gonna have to look this up because I kind of forget. It's with null session, but I kind of forget the syntax of it all. Yeah, protect from forgery space, and then with null session. So this is just gonna say, hey, ignore that token, don't check for that token, it's fine. Might not want to do this in production, but we're just testing out, so this is fine. So now I can go back. Let's try running this again. And there we go. Now our create method's working. So this might be a good time to come into GitHub and kind of see the things I've changed. Come into Git, and then I can come in here and I can come look at all my changes. Just make sure I'm doing everything, that all the changes are made are the changes I want. So I'm just going to go through these one by one. and then add them. I'm not adding any extra lines or unneeded code. So there we go, and then I can do create quote working. I can go ahead and commit that. Cool. So now that that's done, now we can go ahead and do, let's go ahead and do an edit. Now something that's, I'm not really concerned about style, but I don't like how these A tags are just like right up on each other. So I'm just going to do something really quick, go to my application CSS and just do a basic, give me some margin right for my links. Refresh that. There we go. Just gives me a little space, makes that a little cleaner. Cool. So let's now go ahead and do our update. So for this, I'm going to want to put my link right here, like an edit quote for all of these. So for this, I can go ahead and I'm going to go to my quotes.js where I'm looping over these. Oh, sorry, quotes.js where I'm looping over them. I can go ahead and add some links here. So while we're here, let's just do our edit. So remember, this is going to go, we need our users and then the ID and then the quotes and then the ID of the quotes and then with the edit. And that's going to give us back the form. And then we're actually going to have another one of these with the same path as the show. That's going to be delete. We just remember these A tags. And when I click a link here, it does an HTTP GET by default. So I need to make this a delete request. Because if we look at these show, edit, and delete methods, let's just look at our routes. Our show, see that's a GET request, user ID, quotes ID. Our update, it's the edit to grab the form. There's that one. That's a GET request. But our delete, there's that same path, but it's a delete request. And that's going to take us to our destroy method. So cool. So now if I refresh, I'll have the links, and I should at least be able to tell that they're going to the right spot. I'm going to get the action not found because I haven't defined my edit method or my delete method, but if I click on this, that's trying to take me to my destroy method in my quotes controller, which is what I want. So that's at least hooked up to the right spot. And then I can do my edit quote. And once again, the action edit cannot be found. So those are set up good. So now I can go to my quotes controller. I can go ahead and define my edit. And something similar with what I'm doing with the set user, I'm actually going to do this with my quote as well. Let's go ahead and do set quote. Because there's going to be half of these methods I'm going to want to do this same thing where I come in here and I find my quote by that params ID. So I can do a before action on this. Set quote. But I don't want to do these on all the actions. I only want to do these on the actions that require that quote ID. So once again, if you're confused about what that is, I could come to my routes, look at my quotes paths. So they all need a user ID, but only destroy, update, show, and edit need the ID of the quote. So for here, I can say only do this on show, update, destroy, and edit. So now for those methods, for those particular methods, we're going to set the quote. And then for my edit, I'm going to have this quote. So I can say if at quote dot update, I can call my update, oh sorry, this is my, I'm thinking of my update method. I actually just need to render this component. I'm going to call this edit quote. Now I definitely down the road could combine these two forms, but for now we're just going to keep it simpler and just have two separate React components. So for this, I'm going to want to pass my user as props at user. And I'm also going to want to pass, because I want to pre-populate this form, so I'm actually going to pass the quote as well. And these instance variables are both defined by those before actions. So now I need to go ahead and create this edit quote component in my JavaScript components folder. Cool. So now I can go ahead and open up that edit quote. And actually for this, since it is so similar, I can just copy and paste the new quote. But yeah, since I'm copying and pasting, this is probably a sign that maybe I should, down the road, maybe combine these two into one. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of this lecture. So we'll just have two of them. So I just switched the name to edit quote. This is taking a user, so this gets a user and it gets a quote from props now. And now, since this has a quote, I can do the default value. So the default value is just going to be quote.name here. And then the default value for my number will just be the quote.likes. My path is also going to be different, so I need to go to users and then the ID of the user's quotes and then the ID of the quote. And then I need to make this either a put or a patch, but with how HTML forms work, I kind of got to do it this weird way where I do a hidden input. And then it's going to get sent as a post request, but then Rails behind the scenes will unpack it and see, oh, this is actually a patch. So this is going to be a hidden input. And let's see here. This is something, let me check this just to make sure I do this right. Okay, yeah, so we're going to do a hidden input. And then I need to tell it here, name equals underscore method. And then the value, this is where we actually can put in our patch request. And then maybe just for UI sakes, change the button to say update. Okay, so now, let's go ahead and refresh this. I kind of want to go back. Let's just go to localhost 3000. Oh, there it is. Let's do our quotes. Let's go ahead and edit quote. That takes us to our form. Oop, it looks like our numbers is there, but our text is not. Quote dots. Oh, I called it text. Quote dot text. Sorry. So let's refresh that. That should go back, get the text. So it should be here on this second refresh. Just taking a second. There we go. There's my text. Maybe I should make that a text area, but for now that's fine. Let's go ahead and update the likes to a whole bunch and add some exclamation points. So I'm going to click update. And there we go. Well, the action update cannot be found for the quotes controller. So we did not define this. So let's go ahead and do that. Def update. So now I can just grab the quote that I'm doing from my before action, and I can try to update it with my quote params function that we're reusing. I can do an else end. So if this successfully updates, let's just go ahead and do the same thing we did with create and go into our method and go back to that user show page, or to, it's technically the quotes index. And then yeah, the else, we're not going to handle invalid input for now. So let's go ahead and go back. Edit quote. Let's go ahead. Edit the text, edit the likes. So there we go. So now that's updating. Once again, that was a good chunk of work. So I could come into my Git and VS Code and just kind of see the changes I made. So maybe I don't want to have this application CSS. Maybe this one can be its own commit. So I could like just commit this file, because this is like, you know, link styling. That's what I did here. Okay, that failed. Might be having some Git problems. Let's see if it's still broken. So now I'm going to come to my controller. I can see what I've added. See, all of this stuff that I've done is really for my update. So yep, I can add that. There's my edit.js component. I can add that. You know, I've added these two links. That's fine that the delete quotes in there, because that's just pre-set up. So then I can say like update working, and then I can commit that. Cool. So now I can finally move on to my last task, which is delete. So we already have the deletes link set up, and we just saw we need to go define the destroy method. This is going to be quick, so let's go to our quotes controller. Let's go ahead and define our destroy method. In that, so we have our quote, because we have this in our before action. We set our quote in the destroy, and then we can just do @quote dot destroy, and we can destroy that. And then yeah, sure, let's just go after that. Let's go back and head to the user quotes path. So we have our delete method, you know, on this link. That takes us to our quotes destroyer, to our quotes controller, to the destroy method, which destroys the quotes and then redirects us back to this page. Let's go ahead and delete quote. And there we go. It deleted the quote and did a redirect, and there we are. So now we have CRUD actions on our nested quote model. So Chuck Norris doesn't have any quotes. Let's give him a quote. I also sell, what does he sell? Exercise machines. And you know, everyone likes his workout machines, so there we go. Now there's Chuck Norris quotes. We can edit this, we can delete it, and we can show it. So there we have all the CRUD actions done on our nested model. So I will go ahead, I'm going to commit this last destroy method. And I will push this up to GitHub, and this code should be up on GitHub. So hopefully this was helpful in showing the has many, that nested, the CRUD action on a has many database, or you know, that association. Cool. All right, that is it for me. Thank you.